Hello. So, in Korea, I've had to learn how to fake it a lot. So, you might be wondering what it is, what I'm faking. Being here, I've had to employ a memento style pretending to know everyone I meet while having no actual or explicit knowledge of the person that I'm acting like I know. Um, there are rare occasions where I can recognize a student or a coworker that I have been acquainted with. But most often, the people that I do recognize have a distinct hairstyle or unique or interesting physical features, to put it politely, or are kind of odd or quirky acting. When people talk about moving to a foreign country, they often mention the isolation, alienation, and loneliness you feel from, I guess, sort of being removed from everything you know. Um, I haven't really felt this too much, but I have been told it will eventually set in. Um, I'm at 1 year and 4 months and counting, and nothing so far. So we'll see how long that takes to actually set in, if it actually does set in. But another phenomenon people talk about moving to a foreign country is this sort of pseudo celebrity status you get from being different from a majority of people where you are. Um, while this might not be true of many places, as many countries are kind of used to a number of foreigners uh, visiting or living there, um, I think this celebrity status is more likely to happen in places that are more rural or out of the way. Um, and I would say that Jeju is one of these places. I've had quite a few people approach me in public to say hello or just to stare at me, mouth agape, as if I'm some sort of scary creature. Um, and a majority of the time, I am fairly certain that these people are not people that I know. They are not coworkers or students. Um, but I am not always sure. So there are a few reasons for me not recognizing my coworkers and my students. I've already mentioned in a different video the other race effect. Um, Essentially, to quickly summarize, this is that faces from outside of your race are typically more difficult to discern or tell apart than faces from within your own race. And that's because our brain is a very magical, wonderful tool which kind of streamlines its own processes. So, the faces that we're more often exposed to, we get better at recognizing or telling the differences between, and the faces we're not as often exposed to, we kind of lose the ability to do that. Um, so, because most of my students, all of my students, are a different race than myself, I suck at telling them apart. Um, Another issue for my not recognizing them would be context. So, in the high schools that I teach at, a majority of students wear a uniform. So, when I see them outside of the classroom and they're wearing normal clothes or not their uniforms, they become a little bit more difficult to recognize. And sometimes when I see a student age person that I think is from, like, for example, my all girls high school, I have to look at the dress she's wearing to see if it matches the pattern of the uniform. But it also turns out that I suck at recognizing patterns because they all look fairly similar. So it's very difficult. Another issue with context is that the state or place where you learn something is typically the best state or place to recall that information. So, for example, if you have a big test coming up and all of the studying you do while being very drunk, um, the best way to take that test, the the way that you're going to get the highest score on that test, is to take that test while being very drunk. So, if I memorize or encode my students' faces while in the classroom, I'm typically best able to recall their faces in the classroom. So seeing them outside of the classroom, my ability to remember them drops dramatically, becomes sketchy at best. The last factor in my not recognizing my students would be the sheer number of them. If I have estimated correctly, I have between 200 and 400 students per semester. I've been in Jeju for 3 semesters, so between my students, the number of students who befriend me randomly, who I do not teach, and the various other people that I meet in different contexts, I think I have around or over 1,000 faces to remember. So I think I could possibly be forgiven for sucking a little. Due to this, I've started kind of reacting to everyone who talks to me or even glances my way in public as if I know them. I smile and generally am pretty friendly, I think. My version of friendly. I act as if I know that person. Truthfully, I think this isn't too different from how I acted in Canada back home. Because I kind of believe that if you're nice and friendly to everyone you meet, they'll generally treat you the same. It's sort of like a system of karma, I guess. You kind of get back what you put into the world in most cases. Not all the time, but most of the time. However, in Korea, in Jeju, I think that the stakes are higher here. Being one of a smaller number of foreign people that the people of Jeju will interact with, I feel it's more important to be nicer, to be friendlier, because you're going to be one of a very limited number of interactions these people have with foreigners. And you don't want to kind of sully their experience with foreigners, reinforce stereotypes, I guess. In this sense, I sort of feel like I'm an ambassador, a Canadian ambassador, to the people of Jeju, except I don't think I am that important. I'm not that narcissistic. I have noticed on my trips to Seoul, Busan, bigger cities in Korea, people tend to not take as much notice of me as they do here. I'm not sure which I prefer more, this pseudo-celebrity status versus, I don't know, anonymity. But being recognized so much, being noticed so much in public has been an interesting experience. So, I think to summarize, I am a terrible person for not recognizing my students in the street. And, I don't know, be nice to everyone you meet, I guess. And that's all. Thanks for watching. Bye.